My name is Cameron Bennett. And I'm a technical marketing engineer for the Best Practice Assessment, or as many of you know it as BPA. Today, I'll be going over some of the main functionality of the BPA and some of its capabilities, but predominantly focusing on the Panorama Managed Prisma Access BPA. So for those of you that aren't familiar with the tool, the Best Practice Assessment assesses firewall configurations, identifies risk, and provides recommendations on how customers can remediate issues in order to strengthen their security. The assessment will compare your current configurations to best practices and a guide in which best practices are and are not being utilized. So to start, we're going to talk about how you can actually generate a BPA for those of you that might be seeing the BPA for the first time today. So one way that you can do so is by using our customer support portal. So once you're logged into the customer support portal, you'll see an option, Best Practice Assessment, under the Tools section on the left navigation. And then once clicked on it, you'll be asked to upload the latest text profile that you generated through a PanOS instance. And this TSF, as we call it, contains your entire device's configuration and subscriptions and licenses and things of that nature. And once the file is uploaded, it'll take you through numbered steps before it allows you to generate and download the BPA report. So once the user first uploads the text profile, the BPA tool will provide an option on whether you would like to generate the report as a Strata or Prisma Access BPA. This option will only be available based on the fact with whether or not the text profile has a Prisma Access plugin enabled. If it does, then only then will the user see this option. And then once you select Prisma Access and click Generate and Download Report, you will then get a zip folder downloaded on your PC, which contains the HTML format BPA report and a failed best practice checks report in Excel format. And yeah, fine. So once you open the HTML BPA report, this is what the landing page will look like. This is what you'll see every time when you first open the report. And I just highlighted some key points that I wanted to point out that differentiate the Prisma Access BPA from our other versions, like the Strata. In the top left, you see it says the word Prismas. And then also we have a global filters at the top, which allows you to filter by tenant or device. So you can see your security profile adoption percentages based on a single tenant or multiple tenants or however many you want. You will actually see this global filters option available on all pages of the best practice assessment, allowing you to choose to see only relevant information to a certain device that you desire to look at. And then if you look below the big graph, you can also see the overall capability adoption graph, which tells users their percentage of adoption for all security profiles implied on the firewall or Panorama. And then you can also see the different color bars. These allow you to compare your configuration and how you're leveling up compared to industry adoption averages. So of course, if your blue or green bar below the yellow, that means that you're not as performing as well as other companies within the industry, as well as if it's higher, that means you're performing better. And then also, if there's no bar at all, for example, in data filtering or URL filtering and data DNS security, that means that you just don't have the subscriptions applied. Next slide. So here is the main meat and bones of the BPA, of the best practice assessment. So by navigating to the best practice assessment tab, you can see the percentage of best practice checks that fall into these three different categories. The three categories include technical, operational, and management. The checks that, for example, deal with controls that help ensure that day-to-day operations of an organization apply with their overall security plan will, of course, fall into the operational category, and so on for technical and management. And then if you look in the parentheses next to the percentages, you'll see, well, here, for example, it says no change. So if there was an increase or decrease from the last time a report was generated from the same device, it'll have a number there telling you how much an increase or decrease. So they'll just give you an idea if you're improving or lacking in a certain area, and that you should probably look into if it's going down. And then at the bottom, you can see the CIS critical security controls summary. The CIS critical security controls align with other frameworks and standards, and these are just a different standard in which we check if your configuration aligns with best practice. And of course, we have a set number of best practice checks that fall into each CSC control, and it'll show your percentage of checks that pass. We just have this here in the report just to, some people might want to just check if their configurations align with best practices just on different standards compared to the ones that Palo per se, we just give as the recommendation. So these controls are just more of a standard that is more on a grand scheme and known. Next slide. So now we're just going to talk about Prisma Access Health Checks, which is a feature that you will only see in the Prisma Access BPA and not available in any version. That sets it apart. So as you all know, Prisma Access provides consistent security to remote networks and mobile users. Thus, health checks of Prisma Access becomes essential in establishing a solid foundation upon which network security infrastructure is built, which helps our users to identify their weakest areas. It will also recommend the appropriate actions to mitigate any potential risk. Now, there are several benefits of adding this capability into the BPA report. So I've highlighted some of the ones that I believe are the most impactful. Health checks are a way of building a robust security posture. So by looking deep into the health and capability adoption, that helps to drive confidence of our users and allows them to see truly how secure their network is. It also helps to see the overall health of Prisma Access infrastructure, leading to improved security posture, and it helps to create a positive customer experience. Sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming for our customers when they open up the BPA and they see all these checks and they just don't know where to start. So we thought adding in a feature like the health checks to the Prisma Access will just give you a quick understanding of what's going on within the report. Also, automation of health checks via the BPA provides results in a quick and easy way that brings the value of health checks to all Prisma Access customers and on their schedule. It also helps to plan for the future by helping you understand network security inside out, which gives you greater control and flexibility while creating the roadmap of your security infrastructure. And of course, it also helps to reduce overall infrastructure and connectivity related issues. So you also might be asking, this sounds great, but what's the difference between just normal best practice checks and that we already have in the BPA and health checks? And to be more specific, health checks don't focus on security features, but it rather focuses on the Prisma Access related configurations. And this allows you to quickly understand where to focus your security team's efforts with regular BPA scans to identify the health of your Prisma Access, to prioritize tasks and to address deficiencies. So this will really give you an easier way of just seeing exactly where you need to tackle in the report and put more so your focus on, compared to just going through the checks that might not be as important for your company's use cases. So now here is the actual checks for the service health. The detailed health check report will quickly and clearly demonstrate your Prisma Access strengths and weaknesses, indicating how to become more effective and where action is needed. You'll be able to discover how to increase your level of protection. You'll be able to, as you can see here in this screenshot, you see all the failed checks and the past ones. And beneath in the yellow box, it'll give you an exact remediation that you need to do in your configuration to align with best practices. Of course, thus when making the change, generating a new report and coming back here, it should say pass now instead of fail if you correctly implemented the change. The service health option under the best practice assessment tab will provide you with the detailed information about each health check and the necessary actions that are required to pass each of them. And this will allow you, of course, once you make the changes as necessary, it'll increase your security adoption and your health of your Prisma Access. So here is just the trending for your service health adoption. This page allows you to see exactly how you're improving or not in the last reports that you generated. So as you can see here, this report, they generated a report once a year or once a month, 4 consecutive months. And as you see, there was a direct improvement in their infrastructure, security, and connectivity health. You see at first in January, it started off red, and then from February, March, so on, it started to get better and better, meaning that they were implementing the changes that the BPA was suggesting, and it was increasing their security posture. So now we have the health check details. Here you can see we added a rationale and a recommended action to fix any of the health checks. You can access this by clicking the question mark right next to the health checks that you see in the best practice assessment service health section. We added this so users can exactly understand why we recommend the things that we do, and more detail and depth of what they can do to implement the changes. So we wanted our customers to really be able to understand why we were recommending the things we were, so they know that there was some truth to every recommendation. Okay, here we just also wanted to provide an overall result of the health checks. So customers here can see how they are doing in each of the areas. So for example, here we have connectivity and security with 56% of checks passing and with security 63%. And then of course, in the parentheses, we have the same as before, where it'll show you how well you're increasing or decreasing since the last time you ran a report, which of course helps to identify progress and rate of improvement of the Prisma Access Health. And of course, there will also be a trending for just the entire best practice assessment as we have with a strata. And this will allow users to, see how they're doing, track health, show improvements or lack of, and allow you to see exactly what you need to work on in terms of, the key components of the BPA policies that align with best practices, objects, your network configuration, and device configuration. And then of course, in the Prisma Access, we added a service health passing percentage because that's, a key feature of the Prisma Access BPA. So we wanted you to be able to just see all that data here and get a good look of how you are performing. And then we also have this health check adoption trend. It's also similar to the normal best practice assessment trending page, a color-coded heat map, and it just shows you how you are performing and improving over time. So now let's dive into some of the newest features that have been added into the BPA in the recent months. So of course, to those of you that have not used the BPA before, these will be new functionalities that you'll learn, but some of these features, we're going to be covering two big features, and you might not know of them if you have not generated a report in the last few months. So here we have the executive summary, which can be accessed through the direct HTML report and the top tab. This is a feature that we are very excited to bring to the BPA. The new executive summary focuses on the capability adoption, which helps to evaluate device security capabilities and feature adoption against best practices by providing results which are easy to understand, especially for C-level executives, which helps them to make data-driven decisions more easily. It also focuses on risk assessment. It's important for any business to understand and have data on how well their company is protected against cyber threats, because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing that, we focus on when it comes to our network security. We want to protect against any, attacks that could come on to our network. And this new executive summary helps to understand the potential impact of cyber threats and guides them to take action. It also provides key recommendations based on capability adoption and security controls. The executive summary, we think, was a great add into the BPA because, sometimes when you're showing the report to a C-level executive or higher up, they might think that, like, what is all this? I just want to see like the important aspects of the report. So we believe that this executive summary allowed them to just cut to the chase and show the things that really mattered and how it could affect the company if, an attack did go through on the network. Next slide. So here's an actual, snip of the executive summary in the report. In the top right, you can see you can download a PDF of the executive summary if you'd rather view it in that format. So I just wanted to point out some of the key features of this executive summary. As you can see, there are several sections within it. Here I've shown the best practice assessment overview section, which consists of three major components. So to start, we have the BPA system rating. It evaluates the device or devices security capabilities and feature adoption against best practices. The score can be anywhere from low to high. You got to be low and it'll be red, moderate, it'll be yellow, as you can see, and then we have high. And the user can click on more info and it'll redirect them to a document on our live community page, which provides detail on exactly how each of these scores are calculated, along with the definitions for each of them. And then second, we have the CDSS utilization score. And this is the cloud delivered security services utilization score. And it focuses on the efficiency of how your company's use of its network, how your company uses its network security assets. And the score measures the extent to which customers have adopted the CDSS capabilities. And then third, we have the vulnerability protection score. And this just measures the effectiveness of network security assets in responding to cyber attacks. And of course, you can click the more info to learn more about for each of these, exactly how we calculated these percentages. And you can, of course, see how you can improve more. So now we're moving on to the risk assessment portion of the executive summary. So to understand the impact of any cybersecurity risk and to be able to manage it, organizations need to know their cybersecurity risk assessment. Risk assessment is basically the process used to identify, analyze, and evaluate any cybersecurity risk. So there was actually a study done by Forrester that shows that on average, it costs $2.4 million to find and recover from a breach, a network breach. And it's really important for us to add a risk assessment into the new executive summary to help our customers really understand how well they are protected against cyber attacks. And we feel that having an actual dollar amount shown in the report will really show you just how important it is to ensure your security and make sure that it's configured correctly. Because majority of attacks that occur, well, successful attacks that occur against your network are due to misconfigurations of your firewall. So this section highlights which cyber threats users are, of course, vulnerable to. For the initial release, we just added in 3 types of cyber threats. And as you can see here, they're business email compromise, DNS, and ransomware attacks. So the dollar amount shown is static, but we just wanted to, keep it that way just so you can see just how much your company can be losing if an attack thus occurred. And these numbers are based on research that we did, and we linked those articles, as you can see, under potential breach costs or about breach costs right there in blue. If you click that, you can see exactly how these numbers were calculated. And each attack type is tied to capability adoption. And there's a Learn More tab that takes you to a BPA Live community article we have, which shows how these attacks are calculated and which capabilities are tied to each attack, as well as what the recommended actions. So now let's move on to the capability adoption and key recommendations portion of the executive summary. The capability adoption covers the overall adoption across key capabilities and compares it against industry benchmarks. It also provides the data for the coverage across key compliance standards, such as the NIST and CIS controls. And users can also select dates from a dropdown that helps them to see a capability adoption numbers from a past TCF or a past BPA that you have run on your devices. And another section at the bottom, as you can see, we have is the key recommendation, which is based on the failed best practice checks that are tied to security controls. And we added 3 of these security controls. So of course, to the left, you can see we have preventative, which those deal with checks that help to prevent incidents before they occur, meaning the steps taken to avoid unwanted or unauthorized activity from occurring. And then next we have performance, which deals with the intent to increase the performance or help identify those causing performance degradation to help retain optimal performance. And then we have detective, which identifies an incident's activities or helps identify security violations after they have occurred. And for each of these security controls, we added a potential impact and a recommendation and an action required in which you can do to, remediate these fixes. And then at the bottom, we also have a view tab, which lists all the failed best practice checks that fall into these different categories. So here too, this is still in the executive summary. We have a tab about BPA for your panorama. So we wanted to include this tab just so you can see exactly the amount of devices that you have configured on your Prisma Access. So for panorama managed Prisma Access BPA reports, we knew that the BPA report didn't reflect the total percentage of devices for which the security rules have been assigned. This does not give any statistical or valid adoption detail. So thus we wanted to focus on these areas and be able to provide this information within the BPA executive summary. And that's what we have done here. We added a section which shows how many devices are being managed by Panorama and are following our best practices, and how many devices have policies configured to them from Panorama. So now this is a new feature that we also added, and this is the BPA Check Filter. So along with the new executive summary, we also wanted to provide ability to our users to be able to view BPA results, which are tied to their use case. Sometimes looking through all the checks can be overwhelming for our users. So we wanted to add in a filter that allowed you to only see the checks that you were interested in seeing. So thus we added a filter called the Show Best Practice Checks on the mapping definition page. As you can see, you can click on one check, multiple checks, and it'll just show the ones that you filtered in. And this will allow you to see checks only tied to your use case and get results based on the selected BPA checks that you have chosen. And this helps you to focus on the BPA checks that are relevant to you and be able to take actions immediately and more effectively and efficiently. And thank you so much. So now we can have a Q&A.